everyone. I'm Christine Tulley, President of Defend and Publish and Executive Writing Coach. Welcome to episode 60, Tips for Edited Collections, Part 1, Getting Started. This episode is designed for those of you that are working on edited projects. If you're editing a guest issue for a journal, you're doing an edited volume of papers, maybe designing an edited collection for the humanities or social sciences, or any kind of anthology work. This episode should offer some helpful tips for getting your work organized and getting your project off in a way that actually moves it to completion. So I'm going to go ahead and share a screen, and I've got several tips listed here, but for audio listeners, the screen is just mainly a list of things to keep track since we have things that might be used as a checklist here. So we'll go ahead and get started with that. And I want to preface this with saying that I've worked on several edited collections. I've also submitted to edited collections. So I've been both the editor and one of the author, the chapter authors. And there's a couple of things I've found that have just held true about edited collections, no matter if I'm the editor or I'm actually one of the submitters to the volume. And so here's the thing with edited collections and anthologies. A lot of times this project is very secondary to other people's work that they're doing. And so while an edited collection seems like a great idea to get a bunch of different voices together in a similar space and under talking about a similar issue, you know, that's wonderful. A lot of times when I mean a secondary project, it's just that they're working on other things besides this one. So, and how that might play out in terms of an editor role is that your authors that might be writing chapters for you or articles that are going in your special issue are working on their other projects. And this may not be a focal point for them. Part of this is because, for example, in tenure and promotion guidelines, a lot of times chapters and edited collections are worth less than a peer-reviewed journal publication. And so it just might be out of necessity that your authors, while they want to do this work for you, they realize it's not going to get the same type of academic credit. For others, there's a lot of back and forth that happens with edited collections and a lot of waiting around. They might honestly forget all about your project because they've moved on to something else they're working on. So it takes a long time to guest edit a special issue, which I've also done, and do an edited collection. And so one of the ways you can streamline the process as an editor, if you're the person that wants to do the project and be in charge of the project, is just to make sure you set yourself up for success. And that's what we're going to focus on for the tips this week. And we will have a part 2 next week. So one of the things that can go wrong, but also can go very right, is to really think about your call for papers when you're asking for contributors. And so sometimes you don't totally know what you're asking for when you make the call. Like if you know, for example, that you want to do a book on faculty writing. That's an edited collection that I'm working on now with Jackie Wells and Lars Sutherland. And we've been working, you know, we knew what our call was going to be. We knew we wanted to do a book on research in faculty writing, but as our work together has been refined, we've kind of refined our call even a little bit. But the more that you can make that call for papers clear from the very beginning, that will ensure you actually get authors that can contribute what you want. And the second part of that is distributing that call somewhere where people who are appropriate authors for this project will find it. And so there's a whole lot of steps that happen between this, but let's just focus on writing the call for papers first. And we'll do an episode on doing a call for papers as a separate type of writing genre. I am making a note of that right now because I know that's something that people have asked for. But right now, these are just a couple of basic things to check. One would be, you know, do you have a purpose for your project? What is your edited collection designed to do? Is it going to fill a gap in a certain area of research? Is it designed to bring together different voices from different disciplines on a topic? There's usually some kind of reason why the collection itself exists beyond making any kind of arguments within it. It has some kind of collective purpose in bringing authors together. So what is that? What's your working title? Where, ideally, do you think you might submit this? You may know already. So for example, if you're editing a special journal issue, you'll know it's for that journal. Or if you're editing a book for a press and you've already been approved to do the project, you'll know that too. But others of us will do edited projects where we don't yet know who the publisher might be, but you will want to think about that ahead of time because you'll want to, as much as possible, design that call to fit into whatever series you want to get into or whatever press you want to get into. A couple other things to think about would be, how might somebody use your edited collection? So this goes back to the purpose for a second. Why does the collection exist as a collection? Why can't these be separate journal articles or chapters? Would be one question to ask. But the second part would be, if you make a collection or a special guest edited issue, what's going to be the value for your readers? What is something they can get from this collection they can't get anywhere else? Because edited collections, special journal issues, and the like, they really rely on quite a bit of selling to get people to read them. So sometimes guest edited journal issues, if we just pick that, are of high interest to the small community interested in that topic. But you still need to do something to attract other readers that would be like the regular readers for the journal. Same thing with edited collections. If you're doing an edited collection in your discipline on a topic, you want to make sure that that value of that collection to other people besides just those interested in that small topic is apparent. So really thinking through, how might somebody use this? Are they going to use it in a class? Are they going to use it as a literature review or a place where there's a collected history or a collected discussion on a topic? Really think that through. Also, along with that, thinking through where the call for papers can be circulated on whatever lists you might do or social media, and then or at any conferences if you do it that way. But also think about, do you want to just distribute it randomly, or do you want to invite some authors? And as someone who's done 2 edited collections and then worked on several others as a chapter contributor, I'm all in favor of inviting authors, because you might know somebody who's really great to speak on this topic. And maybe they don't want to do a chapter, but maybe they would be great for an afterword or a foreword or some other part of the project. So think about that and see if there's some authors you might want to invite to be part of the project. Another benefit to inviting authors is if you know their work and you know their work habits, you know that they'll get some work in for you, which is always a plus. Another thing to think about is, once you make a call for papers, rather than asking for full chapters out of the gate, just get a proposal first and something short that you can review at a glance. So I like the 150 to 250 word range. And I like to make it pretty simple where folks can submit these. Sometimes I'll just say, just email me the proposals, or email this point person for our edited collection for these proposals. And the reason you're looking to get those proposals first is just to see, first of all, who's interested. 2, you're making it not as difficult for somebody who might want to work with you to write something up quickly and dash it off. Writing a full chapter of 25 pages is a big commitment when they don't even know you and don't even know if this collection is going to get off the ground. But a quick proposal just to express some interest is usually fine. You could even say 100 words. You want to make it really short, that's fine too. But the other thing I like about this is that you can go through, you can make piles or sort your authors into categories of chapters or proposals you definitely want to see a full chapter or a full article from. Those you definitely don't want to, because the topic isn't part of your scope or the author's writing style is not what you're looking for. And then a maybe. And I really like the maybe pile for lots of reasons, because sometimes the maybe pile is full of very good ideas for an article in a special issue or for an edited collection overall focus, but for some reason they don't fit, or there's some other reason why it's a maybe. It could be that the work needs a lot of editorial intervention. You could tell the writing maybe is going to need a lot of help. But for whatever reason, I like a maybe pile, because even those proposals that you might say yes to, maybe they'll decide they don't want to do it when you give them the specifications of what they have to do. Also, as anyone who's ever done a guest issue or an edited collection knows, there's always authors that drop out, and there's always parts of those projects that for one reason or another, the editor of the journal or the editor of the press will say, we don't want this particular chapter when something goes out for peer review. So having a couple of backups in your maybe pile is worth it. And you might find that you're able to squeeze 1 or 2 of those in. So it might be a maybe right now, but as the project develops, maybe you want another chapter in there for some reason. So I like a quick sort to just decide, yes, no, maybe, what do I want to do with these chapters or articles? A third thing is just developing some clear submission guidelines for people that are accepted in your project. You've communicated with them, yes, I want to see a full chapter or a full article from you, but make sure that you're addressing at the very least these things, and perhaps even more of them if you've got other specifications. But certainly documentation style is always number one for me. And this is because make sure you have looked at your journal or your press to see what documentation style they like. If it's APA 7, fine. Then make sure that if that's what it is, you're telling your authors to already document and write in that style. That will save you a lot of hassle at the end to change over their style or do a lot of heavy duty editing on that. So just tell them that from the beginning. This is why you want to know where your journal article or your journal issue or your edited collection is going to go. Also, length of chapters, how long. Don't forget to say single space, double space. I mean, if you want to just go with the regular Times New Roman, font size 12, double space, don't skip extra lines between paragraphs. All of that guidance is appreciated by authors. It's not nitpicky because it tells them exactly how to submit to you. They don't have the same clear guidelines that they might for a journal. So having that ahead of time is appreciated by all. Any other style guidance. So if you really welcome personal narratives in their chapters, tell them that. If you don't want any first person at all, regardless of what type of documentation style you're using, that's fine too. Any rules about figures and tables? Can they have them? Are they allowed to use images or no? And then all the deadlines about when the first draft, and assume that they're going to turn in just a first draft to start. When is that first draft due and how are they going to get it to you? Are they emailing it to you? Is there a Dropbox? What is the protocol for turning it in? And this gets you to workflow. So at this stage in the project, as soon as you put out that call for papers, you need a workflow. And what that means is, where are you putting all the stuff as you get it? As a busy academic yourself, you probably have other projects going on. And so as this is happening out there in the world, you're busy writing your own projects. Hopefully, you're usually juggling multiple projects at one time. So one of the things I would do is figure out, where am I going to store this stuff? And the project I'm working on right now is working very well using just Google Drive and folders for different stages of the project. And also each author has their own folder. So in an edited collection, if I've got 12 chapters, every author gets their own folder. And in every author's folder, we keep things like the first draft, the second draft, any image permissions, all that. So it's all organized by author. You could also do this in a Dropbox scenario. You could use SharePoint. There's all kinds of ways that you can organize this. But the big thing is, if you are one of the editor or one of the editors, figure out who's going to store it and where is it going to go, and who is the point person to receive all the content. So once that happens, you'll have some communication with your contributors as well. So once you receive the information, so if it's email or any other way, you have to let them know you got it. You have to let them know the next stage. So I also like keeping an email log with contributors where I just let it be known, like, okay, this date, all contributors got this email. And on this date, all contributors will get this other email. And that way I know how often I'm talking to them. So I'm trying to avoid the situation where I'm bombarding their email boxes 20 times in 1 week because now I'm working on the project. I would rather have it be more systematic, where I touch base with authors the third Monday of the month, or in every month until the project is finished. That's what I'm doing. So something like that, I think, can go a long way. You can also tell your authors your communication timeline. So if I tell them that, they know, and I would encourage them to put a calendar invite, is that's a day that they're going to revisit the project themselves. So they have to make time for it as well. And that's getting back to your system or your workflow. And then I also like to, at this stage, still at this beginning stage, is to then take a look at the different parts that have to be written for the project. So one thing to determine is if there's a foreword or an afterword, if we're talking about an edited collection volume or a book. If we're talking about a special issue for the journal, probably there's a guest editor's introduction. Depending on circumstance and appropriateness, you might be doing some of these parts yourself. You might be inviting someone to do it. Thinking then about a table of contents. If you have all those accepted proposals, you kind of know what content you have. This would be the time to start arranging it into meaningful chunks for that guest issue, for that edited collection, however you want to work it. we're talking about a guest issue. The last time I did one of those, I believe we took 6 articles. But one of the things that we did do is put those in a reading order that makes sense. Because one nice thing about guest journal issues specifically is when you look at the table of contents, you can see the pieces in a certain order. And so I like to have the more general pieces near the front of the order to kind of set the stage for the more specific pieces. That's just me. For edited collections, though, I might go about this totally differently. I might have, say, 3 themes or 4 themes I want to develop in the collection. And so I've organized those chapters under each of the themes based on what their interest is. So this is one of the things where you might have a table of contents in mind when you start a project, but until you actually get your submissions, you might not really have that table of contents. You'll have to work with what you have and do some arranging. So a couple other things I might think about. A focus for your introduction and your conclusion. So as you get these proposals, right now you're just reading very small chunks of what's going to be an essay or a chapter. So one thing you could do is kind of look through just the proposals and see what are some things people are talking about, what are some common themes, and think about what needs to go in an introduction or in a conclusion, if there is one. Other things you might determine at this point is if you need other types of editorial material. So here we're talking about edited collections or volumes. Sometimes you need inter chapters, like a tiny little chapter that will hook, 2 different themes together, or you'll need a section introduction. Whatever those other editorial pieces are, this would be the time to figure those out. Because one of the things that you're thinking of as the editor of the collection or the journal issue is how all the parts hook together. So the more of that structure you know ahead of time, the better organized you'll be when it comes down to actually writing the editor parts yourself, which will be something that we'll talk about. And then finally, this is a good time to think about any kind of supplementary material. This goes back to the purpose of the book and how somebody might use this project, or the special edit or the special issue, how they might use it. So really think about what supplementary material might be useful here. A lot of times edited collections get their circulation and use from word of mouth in the small communities interested in the topic. But the more that you can do to promote that collection with other things people might find interesting, for example, a teaching unit, a reader's guide, maybe some figures that work with data, an open data set for someone to use. The more things you have like that, those goodies to give away, a lot of times the edited collection will circulate a little bit more widely because it has something else to offer beyond just the content. For the special journal issue, maybe there's a link to an online discussion between you and the other authors. Maybe you'll record a YouTube video or something like that. So supplements are good to think about with these types of projects because by their very definition, they're narrow. And so having these other things might extend the audience for them. So hopefully this first look at 5 tips that will help you with doing your edited collection just to get started, will help you get organized and on track. And we'll revisit this topic next week when we look at the actual writing of the edited collection. Until then, happy writing, and hopefully you have a good week. Thank you.